Hi, it's Craig and Richard here. It's good to be with you. This is the first of our feedback videos in the course that you're taking at the moment. And these are an important part of the course because it's a chance for us to see what's been going on and to give some feedback and respond to questions and comments and help to support the learning. And
right.
It's fantastic to be with you. And this will happen at the end of each week. And so we hope that you watch these videos and get something from them. So welcome to the course. Many of you are doing it for the first time and many repeat learners. Jen and Sherelle, please follow the mentors on the course who are sort of involved in the discussion boards, and they give us a summary each week. And just to mention a couple of things as well, this course is for general well-being, helping us to deal with life and so on. It's not set up to be therapy and so on. So if you feel like you have a strike, any significant issues and so on, then please make sure you speak to your appropriate health professionals. But hopefully this course and whatever you're doing in life will help to support you. And one other thing you'll notice too is there are lots of, and depending on what comes up each week, we'll provide extra links and articles and so on. And please follow those if you're interested. They're optional. They're just there to let you know there's more research. We don't expect you to buy the articles or do anything like that. So, but they're just further information if you want to follow up things as well. So, and Richard, perhaps you'd like to also say a little bit about repeat learners and also the study groups, which are a new innovation.
Absolutely. So we have a lot of new learners and also a lot of repeat learners, and each time we run the course we find that people repeat a lot of people repeat the course, which is great to see. And one of the main reasons people let us know that they do that is because this is not something, mindfulness isn't something that you just get immediately. It's not just about doing a 6-week course and suddenly
tick that box
and move on. But it's it's a lifelong practice actually. And so this course offers an opportunity for people to dip back into it and be reminded of some of the basic things that they've learned.
Yeah.
And it's really great to see repeat learners supporting one another and supporting new learners. So please keep doing that, supporting and encouraging.
Yeah.
And yeah, the study groups are new. So that's been interesting to watch them unfold. And one thing that we'd say is that Jen and Sherelle, the mentors, are focusing mainly on the main thread. And so they'll be dipping in and out of the study groups each week. And of course, with the study groups, it's really about getting together with other learners and supporting one another's learning, getting to know each other a little bit more. So that's really the value of them.
Yeah. So let's have a look at some of the topics that have come up from this week, drawn from experience. And one of the first big issues is recognising the lack of self-compassion. And we get a sometimes pretty tough attitude to ourselves, internal self-criticism.
It's a default setting for a lot of us, actually.
Yeah. And then you sit down to practice some meditation, and all of a sudden this self-criticism
there
turns
it is.
up.
Yeah.
It presents itself. And in fact, the meditation makes it obvious to us. So we should welcome the fact that we're noticing that kind of attitude and being provided with the opportunity to cultivate a different attitude.
Yes.
And those attitudes of reacting and judging and criticising ourselves and everything else sometimes, for that matter, it takes a little bit of time to change those habits and those processes.
That's right.
But if you're noticing that, and if you're noticing the effect of a lack of self-compassion, then that's actually a useful thing. And if we can cultivate the attitude right from the start of not having to criticise what we're observing, but just being interested and curious and noticing, then we'll learn a lot more than if we just dive into criticism about why do I criticise? I can't stand it. I keep
criticising the criticism.
That's right. It gets very complicated when we do that.
That's right. And Craig, it's the same thing with default mode, this basic concept that we introduced this week of just starting to notice how much of the time we're actually just distracted and not paying attention to what we're doing. And even just noticing that is a really important first step. That's happening all the time for us, or at least half the time, according to some of the research. But it's just often happening outside of awareness. Yeah. So even just to notice that is a really important first step. And of course, in any moment that we notice we're distracted and in default mode, that's a moment of mindfulness.
Yes. I can remember one time somebody participating in a mindfulness course said after the first week when we came back and having a debrief, I didn't have all this stuff going on in my head before I started practicing mindfulness.
Mindfulness is making me worse.
Well, it's like it's going on in the dark, and it's like I didn't see it before I turned on the lights.
Yep.
So what we often interpret as a negative thing is actually a sign of progress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And people even noticing their distractedness watching videos each week. Having trouble watching a 10-minute video. Mine's wandering off all over the place.
That's right. Reading a book on mindfulness and the mind's out the window half the time.
Yeah. And of course, Craig, one of the things that contributes to that is the busyness of modern life, what we call the hyperkinetic environments that we're often in, and digital media. Do you want to say something about that?
Well, yeah, the pace of life is speeding up all the time, and the volume of information, the number of things that we can do, and it's in the fear of missing out. So there's this kind of frenetic pace in life, and this can make itself apparent during meditation as well. You sit down and there's this sort of edginess, there's this kind of residual adrenaline running the whole time. We find it hard to stop and to settle. And the technology, as wonderful as it is actually accentuating the problem. Rather than being the masters of technology, we're becoming the servants of it.
That's right.
And the technology itself can be a pretty tyrannical master sometimes. Noticing the flitting of attention, looking for that constant sort of dopamine hit of pleasure, every time sort of going back to it, and the addiction. You put it down, and that's often when you see how compelling it is to go back to
to come pick it up again.
How do you feel when you put the technology down? And so these are good things to practice and experiment with as well.
That's right. A lot of learners noticing that mindfulness helps them with their sleep,
Yeah.
which is a very common experience actually. Meditating before bed, or in fact meditating at all during the day, quite often helps people get to sleep easier, have a deeper, more restorative sleep. There's quite a lot of research about that now.
Yeah, one of the favourite times, of course, for the default mental activity is 3 a.m. It's sort of peak period. Like the rest of the world's quiet, but it's sort of like Grand Central Station and now
That's right.
trains of thought coming and going through our heads. And so learning to just let the trains of thought come and go, and just learning to sit on the platform, and takes a little bit of practice. And in some ways it's the most challenging time in the middle of the night to just not get drawn into these patterns of thought.
I quite often find that when people have difficulty getting to sleep, meditating before hopping into bed, sitting up and meditating 5-10 minutes can really help. And of course there's that informal practice of just lying in bed and catching yourself at 3 a.m. in default mode, and just maybe tuning into the softness of the doona and the pillow and the mattress, and just the breathing, and just bring the mind back, rather than worrying about not getting to sleep, which of course stresses us out, activates.
It's amazing, isn't it, getting stressed in the middle of the night? Like present moment reality, soft mattress, soft pillow, warm blankets.
That's the reality that we're
Quite right.
facing, isn't it? But
that's all that's actually going on, but in our heads, that's another thing. So multitasking has been a big issue that a lot of learners have noticed. And this sort of tendency to multitask, the compulsion to do it. And we really do encourage people to be curious about this, because we assume that we have to, or we need to, or it's productive, or we save time, but the reality is something different. But to notice this really fine distinction between multitasking and efficient attention switching. Some people think perhaps, that when I'm being efficient and effective and moving from thing to thing, that's multitasking necessarily, and it's not. The multitasking is when we're trying to pay attention to two things at the same time. Now, parenting is a classic example. So the toddler comes up and wants to talk, and at the same time you're trying to do something else. Well, it's the one or the other. Give the attention to the toddler, or keep the attention on what's going on. But we have to choose one or the other. If we're trying to have deal with some complex issue over there, and at the same time do something complex over there,
doesn't work well.
Scramble our brain.
And we're always attention switching anyway. We're either doing it efficiently or inefficiently.
That's right. And so the thing is to be aware enough to be able to prioritise the attention and focus on the one thing, and then give the attention to the next thing, and then to the next thing. And that's not actually multitasking. That's efficient attention switching if we're prioritising the attention well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, as people have started to notice this, learners have started to notice this, one of the other things they've noticed is the effect that has on the mind, but also the body.
Oh, yes.
The wear and tear, or the allostatic load that it causes, increased heart rate and feelings of stress and tension, and it's great to notice that.
It's one of the things that people often notice when they work more mindfully and unitask more effectively, that they conserve a lot of energy. That nervous kind of tension that's being burned up excessively when we're trying to multitask gets conserved, and the person's got more energy at the end of the day.
Just not happening in quite the same way.
Yeah. Now, if you can be mindful as a parent, one thing at a time, then you're an absolute Zen master.
That's right.
So,
That's the black belt mindfulness challenge.
That's right. It's not so easy. Allostatic load too, that sort of stress. Would you like to say something about that, because it's come up a little bit in the discussions?
Well, there's that wear and tear we were talking about on the body, really starting to notice the effect that that's having.
Yes. And that has a cumulative effect, of course, which ageing and chronic illness. The formal meditation practice, the comma, we introduced that early just to get a sense that we can practice meditation for a longer time, a full stop, or for a shorter time, a comma. It's not meant that the comma replaces a longer practice, but it can be a tremendous adjunct, if you like, just to help us to transition from one important part of our day into another important part of the day, put a little bit of space there. And and the commas can be as short or as long as you like. You just step up and you need to speak in public, for example, and you just step up to the podium and you put your things down, and that little moment of, it could just be a second or two.
Just arriving.
Yeah, just to be present and engage with the task, so it could be very short.
Yeah. The vice president of Google, every time she goes into a meeting, which is, I imagine, her whole life, says that she stops at the door and takes one breath. She calls it a 6-second mindfulness practice.
Yeah.
And in that moment, of course, she's letting go of what she was just doing, arriving fully in the present so she can enter into that room ready for whatever's there.
Yeah, because it's fantastic if the body gets into the room for a meeting, but it's even better if the mind comes with you. And so having that little moment of mindfulness can really help.
So it's a very scalable practice.
Yes.
And some of our learners also found that when they started to do the longer practices, there was a bit of a self-consciousness about doing nothing.
Especially if you're doing it in a public place.
That's right. We're such a doing culture. We're always thinking and doing, especially with digital technology now. We're always sort of plugged in and doing something. So to stop is a very unusual experience for some of us.
Yeah.
But a very powerful one.
Yeah.
Very important.
And just riding those waves of self-consciousness, just letting them come and go, and just letting the thoughts about, what's everybody think about me, and just being present. And of course, I suspect, for a lot of people walking past, I think, I could do with a bit of peace as well. And so
some people took to the sitting meditation, some took to sort of informal practice, and of course, enjoyed practicing mindfulness while doing things like exercising.
And we do want it to be seamless. We don't want to think, this is mindfulness, and then there's the rest of the life. We want people to sort of see it as a seamless thing. When you get out of the chair and you move back into what you're doing, and be mindful then. And so it's a sort of a living mindfully. Yeah. People were discussing sitting, lying.
Yes.
Is there one position only?
The best position is the one where you stay awake. That's pretty important. Mindfulness isn't an exercise in falling asleep or even necessarily relaxing. It can be very relaxing. So in the beginning, often sitting up just with a straight back, but in a relaxed way. That's usually the best posture for sitting in, and everything else is sort of not that important.
Yeah.
Just really staying up. Yeah.
And of course, many will notice if you do lie down, then sleep happens much more readily. Or you meditate after food, sleep happens more readily. Or at the end of a busy day, sometimes you notice sleep. And then what you're doing is having a power nap, and that's really good. And maybe that's a good thing to do before your meditation. Yeah. But
And moving as well while meditating, Craig. Some people were asking about that.
Yeah, it blurs the lines a little bit. Is a walking meditation? Is that a meditation or not? Well, if you're a very strict sense of the word, no. Sitting in the chair, for example, the body being still is meditation, but the line's a bit blurry. You could be, whatever you do in a mindful way could be described as a form of living, walking meditation. Brushing your teeth in a meditative way. So anything could be meditation. It just depends on how you want to define it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, meditation is a way of becoming more present by engaging our attention with the senses. And it's also it's a scientific experiment, really, and it's laboratory conditions. And that's the value of sitting meditation. We quiet and write down, and we start to really notice the habits of the mind and the effect that they're having on us. And so a lot of our learners started to really notice distractibility while meditating. And again, just like noticing distractibility in day-to-day life, that's a really important first step. And to notice it is important, to notice the effect, and also to train ourselves just to gently come back over and over again. And increase our ability to be present is a very important thing to be practicing.
And it's come up a bit, how do I quieten the mind? There's so many good dog metaphors for meditation. And, it's like the mind can be a little bit like a dog with a ball in its mouth. And you'll notice if you start chasing a dog with a ball in its mouth, it'll run away from you. But it always has the capacity to just run and just be 2 steps in front of you. So you never actually catch it. And we think, I've got to stop the dog running around so I can get some peace. What we do is we just learn to sit over on the bench, the park bench if you like, and the dog will run around. The mind will run all over the place, the thoughts will come and go. But if we learn to just be still and not moved by them, then eventually the dog may come along and just drop the ball at our feet. And so we don't need to worry too much about the distractibility, just leave it alone.
That's right. Just don't get caught in it.
There are many other things that perhaps we could talk about. We don't want to sort of, for these videos to go on for too long, but people notice things like tension, for example.
Sleepiness.
And that's just part of the terrain that we notice, and that's all right, just learning to, as it were, be calm with tension, be relaxed about noticing tension. It can just settle itself.
Breathing is an important one. I think some people find that when they bring their attention to their breath, they start to just automatically change it, or they start to worry that they're not doing it correctly.
Got to control it. And that's a very common experience. And what we'd encourage is just to allow the breath to happen naturally as best you can. And if you find yourself controlling it or worrying about it, see if you can just keep letting go of that control, letting go of those thoughts and concerns and evaluations of the breath, and just be with it as it is. Just sort of head in that direction. It'll get easier over time if we just practice.
Yes.
A few comments about the meditation record and so on, the practice record.
Some learners found that really useful. So if it's useful for you to keep a record of your practice like that, great, keep doing it. If that seems to be a distraction or not so useful, like everything in the course, just let it go.
And we'll explore some other topics about creativity and performance and so on in upcoming weeks, because I'm sure it's a theme that will come through a few times. And comments as well about it being childlike, and in a way it is. We were born mindful, but we
unlearned it somewhere along the way, didn't we?
We got into other habits. So perhaps just in closing, so just a couple of comments about...
first of all, don't rush through the course. Sometimes learners do all 6 weeks in one day, and it's, sure, if you want to see what's coming up, great, do it, but this is an experiential course, and as we said, the repeat learners, what they're really pointing to is that it's the practice over time, and it's the application in your life, and it's the conversations that you have about mindfulness.
And be patient. This is a longer process, and we look forward to seeing you next week on the next feedback video, and have a great week of practicing and living mindfulness in your own life.